there is something called out of body experiences. The Peak Darien is one book wherein the lady who is supposed to die, who is on the deathbed, saw her 3 already dead brothers calling her. Well, that may be true, nothing, probably her accumulated imaginations, okay. But then she also says she saw a 4th brother inviting her, calling her, talking to her, smiling at her. Now everyone knows that the 4th brother was living in India at that time. So they dismiss the thought, but then after some time there comes a letter that the 4th brother also had died before this lady had died. See, these are all recorded proofs. There is a recorded proof of a doctor, Dr. Ackley, in a meningitis coma, all of a sudden coming up to life, explaining the heaven he has seen and then dying, never to come back again. There is a proof of Pam Reynolds, even in BBC television, how she saw the heaven in her deep coma state and how she believes still. The Breath of God, a book something like that she has written. There are several such books. Probably all these books are instances. Now my idea is to give the viewers in the later ensuing series physics, attaching physics, electrons, the atoms, how physical proofs point out to the body that death is not final, how the other Vedas, how the ancient brilliant rishis who have come wave after wave to India, at that time settled in India, somewhere in North India and also in South India, how they have explained the matter so strikingly similar to the matter already, to the subject already discussed and now undergoing several proofs in the medical field, how they both are strikingly similar. This is what really surprised me and really put me, actually it drowned me in the field of surprises, how the ancient wisdom matches everywhere with modern scientific findings. Now after this OBEs, scientists always say, whatever you say we are not going to accept. These OBEs are also and NDEs are also hallucinations. They openly, like Dr. Sean Carroll and Dr. Stephen Norola, openly challenge. They say we do not believe it could be hallucination, and their finding also has some merit. I would say, I would argue alongside those scientists who do not believe consciousness. They say if the consciousness leaves the body and if the consciousness actually exists, when it enters a new body, the consciousness should also remember its old body. Why? Because your brain remembers its schooling time, when you enter your college days, when you are going to office, when you are getting married, or suppose you are in later half of 50s, what happened in your 40s, in your 50s, your retirement, everything the brain more or less remembers very correctly. So there is no doubt on that. All of us do remember when we went to school, when we got married, when we got our jobs, all these things. So in the same way, why the consciousness does not remind you or make you remember your earliest lives? If the consciousness is alive, it should also remember its earlier births. The consciousness should guide you to do what to do correctly and not what to do which is wrong. Why it does not do that? Why you feel that when you lose consciousness you do not know anything, especially in your deep sleep? Where is that consciousness? These questions should be answered, and I would like to answer these questions very thoroughly. Why consciousness is not able to remember its previous births or previous bodies or in its state? Lord Krishna in Uddhava Gita chapter 16 verse 41 beautifully answers the doubts of these modern scientists, that why consciousness, if it is real, does not remember its previous births. Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, I will give you that Sanskrit text. Swapnam manoratham cha ittam praktanam na smarati asau tatra purvavam iva atmanam apurvam cha anupashyati. That means swapnam, dream, manoratham, it is for our mind, it is manoranjitam, it is beautiful, it is nice. Swapnam manoratham cha and ittam, just like this, cha ittam praktanam, previous, praktanam na smarati asau, na smarati, you don't remember this, tatra, there, purvavam, the previous ones, iva atmanam, the soul, iva, just like this, the soul, apurvam, rarely, cha anupashyati. Here in Sanskritam, they have the poetic liberties, mixing the subject and the predicate, but the idea is, while you are dreaming beautiful dreams, in that dream state, are you aware of your another state called the waking state? You are not aware, very clear. While you undergo a dream, you do not know that you have another state called the waking state. You enjoy the dream or you experience the dream, but during that dream you are not aware of your waking state. In the same way is your consciousness, explains Lord Krishna. If it is so deep, if it is too much coated with your current activities in the body, the consciousness is not going to remember its previous birth. Because of your involvement and your brain getting coated with the worldly emotions, the daily emotions, the coating is so thick like a smoke, a dirt which cannot be cleaned, or it will take some time to get cleaned. In that period, you would not enable your own consciousness to be aware of its earlier births. This should explain, because in our practical life we are bogged down, we are embroiled in our worldly activities, that we have no time even to think of our ancestors, we have no time even to think yesterday's activities, we would not have time to think of our nearby relatives, because you are carrying out with your worldly activities. In such a situation, how will your brain equipment in your body will try to contact with something called consciousness, and then that consciousness would now inculcate or put in your brain your early remembrance, your early life. It is impossible. That is what Lord Krishna says. You don't remember anything during your dreaming state, that you have another state called the waking state. My dear Uddhava, this is the concept of life. So much of involvement, so much of practicality we have in this. A beautiful explanation he gives. Likewise, Lord Krishna gives a lot of explanations which, when I go to Vedic structures, Vedic perspective, I would explain. Therefore, this will say that you will not have the capacity, like your memory, you will not have the capacity to remember your previous lives. But one thing is certain, whether it is Dr. Sam Parnia or whether any other leading doctors, it is very clear that memory is different. Memory is not embedded in your neurons. Neurons or nerve cells in brains, memory is not embedded there. It is not a function of the brain. Memory goes along with consciousness when it separates from the body. Memory is abstract. Memory is not a physical product like your nerves, tissues or bones. Memory is different. Memory is an abstract product that leaves your body, and it depends on that memory with consciousness that sharpens or getting sharp, and only some very few, which I will come into reincarnation aspect perspective, will have the capacity to remember their previous lives. That also in reincarnation with authenticated proofs I will establish. Therefore, consciousness is something which was afloat. It is something universal. It is something unified. It can draw and come and settle in you. Consciousness was prevalent. For example, all of us are made out of stardust. Stardust means when the earth was formed 13.72 billions back, there was a big bang, the entire universe was formed, matter was formed. As the universe cooled down, they got converted into clouds or stars or whatever it is, and we all are a part of it. Now, in this earth, which was say formed around 4 billion years back, at 65 million years back, a meteor crashed and it gave a big cloud surrounding our earth. No life was there. Even what is known as dinosaurs and all those prehistoric gigantic animals died. And for a million years after that, after they died, there was nothing but darkness. Maybe darkness, all the dinosaurs or whatever saros, whatever prehistoric animal names you can think of, all perished. But consciousness was alive, and that consciousness which was floating kick-started whatever it is, the bodies, and it got embedded. Therefore, one cannot say when the person dies, he is dead totally. That means there was some floating consciousness available. A common sense will tell us, when the energy escapes, it must find its safe haven or safe haven somewhere. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. Body also cannot be created or destroyed, as I told you earlier. It only changes its form to some sort of other molecules. Therefore, the concept that death is everything, there is no life after death, a man dies, he dies permanently, as per scientists or as per some scientists, is wrong. It cannot be. It cannot be created, neither can it be destroyed, only it can change its form. That is the brilliance of our rishis, who gave us this concept several thousand years back through various literatures, which I am going to talk of. There cannot be a death. There cannot be something called a judgment day based on a single birth for a human being. One birth is nothing when compared to a cosmic time. There has to be several births. The soul has to enter several bodies for its own purification, as demonstrated by Dr. Brian Weiss, for its own evolution. Aurobindo and mother of Pondicherry ashram also feel the same thing. They have also stated the same thing. The only difference is they talk of a psychic being. The psychic being enters, the soul allows the psychic being to grow, and its psychic being fixes at the time of its death to which state it has to enter. It is not any other thing. The psychic being is governed by the soul. The soul nurtures the psychic being. The psychic being then dominates the mind. Aurobindo says, mother also feels, she also says in their book, that is, there is something beyond death. That means death is not final. You do not die. The death which takes place, the man is dead, he is gone, is totally a wrong impression, both from the viewpoint of matter and both from the viewpoint of an energy which made the matter inside the body function. The energy cannot die, the matter cannot die. Swami Abhayananda also says very beautifully, we all know that the energy, the spirit cannot feel pain. The matter also cannot feel pain. If the matter can feel pain, the dead body should feel pain. Therefore, the concept that the man is dead is over is a tricky situation, because your eyes, your brains, which is used to seeing a person in a particular form, had only changed, and that person body matter could have changed as per your brain's perception, but in actuality it may not have changed. There was a trick somewhere. Let me now again say about these out of body experiences. There were various instances wherein the people who were standing around the dead body had seen the body emitting strange blue lights, emitting lights from their heart and going upwards, not here but in foreign countries, in Australia, even in US. They found that when the body when the person is at the near death time, there was an emanation, something going out. You know, we have also seen, many of us in India, in Tiruvannamalai, in South India especially, in Madras especially, has seen a beautiful energy, a light out of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's body floating up in the skies. This has been reported by my own grandparents, by the Hindu paper which I saw in 2000 AD, Hindu paper column 50 years back, in April 14th, where they themselves had reported in April 15th paper what happened in 1950 at 8:47 p.m. There were also reports of New York Times. There were many newspaper reporters there. Everyone has seen the bright comet floating in the sky at that time from that place. Now, that means that for certain siddhas, for certain sages, that egress, that light, the energy has taken place. Bhagavan has known his body to be a temporary phenomenon, and he is a firm belief that body is nothing but perishability, and the life does not end with the change of form of the body. Now, let me come to what is known as a little exposure on the medical perspective. Our brain, if you take, is a complex organ. It has got the brain stems, then it has got the medulla oblongata, the pons, the midbrains, then you have what is known as the cerebellum, all this thalamus, hypothalamus, the lobes you have, the cortex, under that the lobes you have, what is known as the frontal lobes, the parietal lobes, the occipital lobes or the temporal lobes. It is a very complex organization, wherein if you have the homeostasis, it decides the temperature of the body. The cortex is very important because the frontal cortex, the occipital lobes which is there, it gives you the vision power. The frontal cortex give you the articulation ability, the ability to speak more languages. They say your memory is somewhere between all those neurotransmitters, the neuron impulses. Some say it is between the hippocampus. There are a lot of, but the brain is required. And then you have the neurotransmitting chemicals, acetylcholine or endorphin or dopamine, lots of chemicals, serotonin, whatever it is, glutamate. There are various chemicals, various neurotransmitters, and inside these neurons, even if you split a neuron, what you will have, every neuron cell has what is known as axons, the dendrites and the body. The axons give out those signals, converted by it into electrical signals, goes through the synapses and received by dendrites, which again sends it through the another cell's body, convert it into electricity, and axons send it. So, dendrites receive and axons send. Motor nerves you have the sensory nerves giving and receiving information throughout the body. It is a very complex system, the human brain. And in this human brain, we should also we have what is known as neural filters also. See, for example, our eyes, our vision, our eyes can only trap objects that are the wavelength of say 380 nanometers to 700 meters. There are basically 7 systems in the spectrum. There are basically 7 types of rays, what they call as gamma rays, very high frequency. Then they have what is known as X-rays, then they have what is known as the ultraviolet rays, the infrared rays, then you have the visible light, then you have what is known as the radio waves, then you have what is known as the microwaves. We have these 7 types of rays, radiation. We can see the visible light, which is 380 nanometers to 700, because your human eyes does not have the capability to trap at all frequencies, only at certain frequencies. When you see a television, nothing but frame pictures being sent at very high frequency. So, you feel that the television is running, but nothing but frame pictures. So, your human eyes, the brain can trick you. When you at a distance see in a tar road in summer a mirage, you will find water, but when you go near that, you do not find water. That means you have been tricked by your brain. That means your brain can trick you. So, there can be an universe right under my nose in a different frequency, in a different size, but your senses are not able to trap them. Just because your senses are not able to trap them does not mean they do not exist. Just because Newton found calculus only 500 years back does not mean that calculus did not exist 5000 years back. So, what you find now does not mean that they had not existed previously, that they had not existed previous to your discovery. Now, why I am telling you is, in actual philosophy, in actual science, your brain tricks you certain times. So, with a tricked brain also you come to a illogical conclusion, an illogical conclusion about death, about birth. It is totally illogical for us to see something and come to a conclusion. It is your own feeling. as James Jeans or they put it, a man coming from the slum comes into an ordinary room and finds it comfortable. Another man coming from a palace enters the same room, finds it not comfortable. A man coming from a very hot place near the oven coming into an ordinary room will find it comfortable, but a man coming from a very cold place or a very hot place, whatever it is, the temperature of the room depends on where they come from. That means everybody has its senses, every person has their senses, and these senses may not be the perfect answer for a solution. It depends on your senses. Now, everything what we perceive can change, because there is a saying that we have a neural filter. In the neural filter, if photons come to our brain, say 100 milliseconds, if 5 to 9 photons we can really assimilate and find things normal. If suppose only one photon comes and we assimilate that, we would feel the things to be noisy. See, everything has its own frequencies and its own appearance, apparitions. That does not mean that is the finality.